because of everything that I had been through, was just like, this really, really dark period for most of my life. And I feel like 5 years ago I was born. So I feel like I'm in kindergarten now.
Yeah, it's a rebirth. It's really a rebirth. Yeah.
It was. It truly, truly was. And so, as I was going through divorce, I started a divorce blog. Eventually, I added three, now four other writers. We're all divorced, and we write on the various topics of divorce. I'm supporting people who are contemplating, going through, and challenged on the other side of divorce.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Lived Experience Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Tamia Ryan, and today I'm honored to be joined by Regina Hiremath, founder of Alimonia Life and author of Lessons on the Way to Onesome. After experiencing child abuse in a 20-year emotionally abusive marriage, Regina has transformed her pain into purpose by creating resources, building community, and advocating for those navigating divorce and experiencing domestic violence. From overcoming her fear of public speaking to now being her own platform and keynote speaker. She's a certified life coach, board member for Confronting Domestic Violence, and Regina's story is just a true testament to resilience and rebirth. So, thank you so much, Regina, for being here today. I'm excited to hear about your journey and to learn about how you've healed and how you're also helping others.
Thank you so much, Tamia, for having me on, allowing me to come onto your platform to share my story with your followers.
Thank you so much. And I'd love to just get right in. I'd love to hear about your journey from being a survivor to finding the healing within yourself to found your own business and to help others.
Absolutely. So, my story starts in childhood. My parents were incapable of raising me, and because they were young and just doing their own thing. My maternal grandmother stepped up to take care of me. Like in childhood, we have our like earliest memories, and that was who I remember as my caregiver. And eventually, she and I moved out of state. We relocated to live near her mother, and we built a new home. And so this was like such an exciting time for me as I was starting kindergarten. We had this beautiful new home, this new environment, and I felt so much love and safety. But when I was in first grade, my grandmother passed away from cancer. And at the time, the family came together and decided that it was time for my mom to step up to take care of me. So when I went back out of state to live with my mom for 1 year, it was a very tumultuous time, which resulted in me being abused in nearly every way by the people in her life and in our home and in homes that we were going into. And so by the end of second grade, my mom had lost custody of me. And I was then sent to live with my great aunt. My grandmother's sister stepped up to care for me. And when I relocated back to the home there that we had built, I discovered that she was an alcoholic and she was physically and verbally abusive. So I survived that for 10 years. Just, it's a really difficult period, but I learned that within that period, I became resilient and resourceful and
Mhm.
learned a lot about life early on. I came into early adulthood really scarred. I eventually ran away. I went back to live with my mom, who was living in a completely different state. And it was still challenging just because of her own challenges. I came into early adulthood with lots of trauma and scars, people pleaser, seeking love and attention, and a lot of the wrong ways. And finally, I met someone and I fell in love, and we got married in Hawaii and just had this what felt like fairy tale unfolding for
Mm-hmm.
me. But it wasn't long before I realized that it was a nightmare. And because I didn't really have a strong support system around me,
Mm-hmm.
I just didn't know what to do. And so the marriage was long, was difficult, narcissistic abuse. I come from the quiet side of DV in that it was verbal, financial, and emotional abuse. 23 years of that. I found myself on my kitchen floor, exhausted from a life that was ever pressing. I
Mm-hmm.
just thrown the dishes from the dishwasher in frustration and realized that I needed to get some help. And I did. And it took me a couple attempts to leave because when you're in a narcissistic relationship, the narcissist does a really good job of getting everyone around you in the palm of their hand, and they strip your support system right out from under you. And even when I did try to go to people around me to tell them to open up and tell them what was going on with me, they didn't believe me, even my own mother. I had to fight really hard and long for myself. It's a period of time that I'm completely grateful for because it was on me to rescue me. And so I did. It took me 2 attempts to leave, file for divorce and to leave. And 5 years ago, I finally I finally succeeded and I got out.
Yes.
And since that time, it's just been an incredible journey.
Yes. Thank you so much for sharing and being vulnerable to share that story because I can only imagine just how you described your childhood and then now you felt like you almost found like this new start and like you said just being married in Hawaii just which is almost to me symbolic of just beauty in itself and then to find yourself back in this dark place. How did that integrate with your childhood trauma, experiencing the adult trauma and feeling okay, I'm back in this place again?
The interesting thing for me that I discovered was that as much as it was uncomfortable, there was a level of comfort that I was accustomed to.
Mm.
The verbal abuse, and for the most part, it wasn't physical, so it felt better, oddly.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you talked about something, the quiet side of abuse, and that you perhaps weren't coming into work or going outside with bruises, physical bruises, but there was the internal scarring
Yes.
that was happening. Can you talk a little bit about your experiences with sharing what you were going through with people and what that was like?
When I speak, the title of my talk is Shattered Without a Mark
Okay.
because it was just that. I was shattered in every way, and no one could see a bruise, a mark, or anything on me. But
Mm-hmm.
I remember going to a close friend and trying to share with her about what I was experiencing, and it was really difficult for her to understand because she and my ex-husband often had conversations around business, and he was a high achieving executive.
Okay.
And so people looked up to him in my circle for business advice about pursuing other careers or jobs and things of that nature. And
Mm-hmm.
so they just felt like he was the most amazing person. So when I came to my friend and I was trying to share with her about it, I just honestly felt that she didn't believe me. And that was really hard because she and I were very close.
Yes.
And once you start to experience that feeling that people don't believe you, and that's what you deal with every day in your home. This kind of space where you are denied a voice, and then you reach out to someone close to you and they do the same thing to you. It just causes you to go further inside of yourself for protection,
Right.
because it's like, where can I go to get help? Then I had a friend who I'd known for years. We live a couple hours apart. We met up for lunch one day. And for some reason, I was feeling really vulnerable that day. Maybe something had happened. And I began to open up and share with her about some of the things that I was experiencing. And because she was very religious, and I was sharing with her that I was done with what I was going through, I was done with the marriage, and I was ready to leave. She was going to pray us out of this
Mm.
situation. And that experience pushed me further
Yes.
inside of myself. And I was very hurt, very angry with her. And I did not speak to her again for years,
Yeah.
for years. And then when we did reconnect, I did share with her. I was on the other side of my divorce,
Yeah.
and she reached out to me, and she was seeing the things that I was working on, and I think she felt convicted, and she reached out to me, and we did talk, and she apologized to me, but I did let her know how her words and her position and really made me angry and
Mm-hmm.
frustrated and really hurt me. And she apologized, and I forgave her. Yeah.
I'm glad that you were able to reconnect and share how you felt in that moment. And in that moment, you had to step away and protect yourself.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about what was the turning point for you that gave you the ability to file? I know you said the first time it took two times. Can you talk a little bit
Right.
about that turning point for you?
So the first time that I filed, he begged me to stay. And I thought about it for a few days. And then I came back and I said, okay, we have to see a psychologist. We went to the psychologist for 4 years. And it was like one step forward, two steps backward, one step
Yeah.
forward, three steps backward, because there was no intent to adhere to the advice of the therapist and to make the necessary changes for us to grow and to heal. And one thing that I have learned, because I've spoken with friends who are therapists, counselors, psychotherapists,
Mm-hmm.
that narcissists do not believe, majority of them do not believe that there's an issue with themselves,
Right.
and that the problem is often the other person, meaning
Mm-hmm.
me. So many have said that once they determine that a client is narcissistic, they end the sessions,
Mm.
because they go in circles and they get nowhere with them. So basically, I was going to therapy for 4 years for nothing, is what it felt like. But during that period, I learned a lot about myself and what it was that I needed to do. So the 5th year, I continued to go to the therapist, but I scheduled the sessions alone,
Okay.
because I completely understood what it was that I needed to do, but I needed to get the strength to do that. And
Yeah.
so that 1 year gave me the space and the tools and support that I needed. And then there were just more things. But one of the things that I found interesting was that kind of stuck with me in my therapy session was my therapist asked me one day, what will you do if he doesn't change? And I never considered that,
Mm.
because I'm here to fix,
Right.
to help, to shore up, to build this marriage into something that's viable. And when he asked me that, it was like somebody just knocked me upside the head,
Yeah.
brought
Yeah.
me back to reality, was what I
Mm-hmm.
really needed. And so I sat with it for a minute, and then I looked at the therapist and I said, if he doesn't change, then I have to move on because I'm worth more than that.
Yeah.
And I went home, went back into my life, and every time something happened, that thing kept
Coming back.
playing.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it kept coming louder. That
Mm-hmm.
soundtrack was playing in my mind over and over again. And then there was just a series of things that happened that pushed me over the edge at the end. And I was like, I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm done.
It was that moment, and that moment is different for everyone. And sometimes people don't understand it. They'll say, why doesn't the person leave? And there's all this work that's being done in the background that people just aren't aware of for that person to get to the point where, one, it's a safe moment where they can make those decisions. And your story just shows that. And I'd love to transition a little bit. And thank you again for sharing about your experiences. I'd love to hear
Absolutely.
about what you're doing now and how you're helping others.
That's the fun part.
Yeah.
It was 5 years ago. And I've really, honestly, lately, I realized that I feel like that was the day I was born
Mm,
because of everything that I had been through was just like this really dark period for most of my life. And I feel 5 years ago I was born. So I feel like I'm in kindergarten now.
yeah. It's a rebirth. It's really a rebirth. Yeah.
It was. It truly was. As I was going through divorce, I started a divorce blog. Eventually I added three, now four other writers. We're all divorced and we write on the various topics of divorce. I'm
Okay.
supporting people who are contemplating, going through, and challenged on the other side of divorce.
Okay.
I realized at a certain point that I needed to grow my audience. And in order for me to do that, I needed to start speaking.
Mm,
But in order to do that, I needed to conquer a lifelong fear of public speaking. Everything that I had been through had made me so shy.
yeah.
And shortly after having that conversation with one of my besties, I was asked to speak at an abuse symposium. And then I said yes. And then I was just like, okay, what have I just done?
What have I started?
Okay, what did I do? What is going on here? It was like within after I said that, it was within the next month or two. And so it was like surreal. But I took some time and I worked and worked and worked. I wrote this speech. I had 5 months to prepare.
Yes.
So I wrote this speech and I was in my bathroom mirror with my trash can as my podium. And
Mm-hmm.
I was really working on the speech. And then was in the last meeting, I was informed that I was going to be the opening speaker. So I was like,
Wow.
okay, that's a lot of pressure. But at least I get it over with. I get it over with, and then I can go sit down. It went well. I was asked to speak at a women's wellness conference 2 months later. I took the rest of the year off because I felt the need to start writing a book.
Mm-hmm.
And this year is just incredible.
Yeah.
How does all this come together in this way? So I just picked up my laptop one day and just started writing. Knew nothing about prior to writing the divorce blog, was
Mm-hmm.
not a writer.
Yeah.
And so I started writing for 6 months. I was just telling my story, and around the 6 month mark, I felt stuck. Like I didn't know the direction, like I needed some guidance. I certainly needed help with publishing and that sort of thing because I was reading stuff, but it still didn't tie together for me.
Yeah.
So I had a vendor's table for my blog at a women's empowerment event. And I met this amazing woman who had written like 4 or 5 books. She was one of the speakers. We connected so well that day. And I eventually set up a meeting with her, hired her as my consultant to come on to the project. She loved the title, she loved the concept. She was like, I don't take everything, but I want to work on this project with you.
Yes.
As we were wrapping up the book, I was asked to speak at domestic violence fundraising gala. It was Confronting Domestic Violence's inaugural fundraising gala. And I had reached out, I'd seen the event online, reached out to the founder, an amazing conversation, asked to be considered as a speaker. She has said, absolutely, I love your story. And something happened with the keynote speaker. She reached out to me and offered me the position. I accepted. And I was also in the background working to get donations and designing centerpieces and stuff like that. Because whatever I get involved with, you get 100% of
Yes.
me. And so before the event, she offered me a executive board position, to
Wow.
which I accepted. Yes. So the last 2 years have been like incredible. I'm working on some projects that we have coming up with Confronting Domestic Violence. We have a golf tournament coming up. We have our second annual fundraising gala, and that's been an amazing journey. I've learned a lot. I am head of community relations, so I am reaching out to partners within the community, trying to raise awareness for our organization, partnerships and donations and things of that nature. I came into this year with the goal of completing my life coaching certification, which I did in February.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. And at that same time, I was preparing to go to the LA Times Festival of Books.
Wow.
Yeah, with the book.
Amazing. And just hearing your story of the years of trauma that you experienced, and then within 2 years, and it was just it just kept coming. It was like you had one opportunity and another added on and another, and just almost sounds just like a whirlwind of just new joy that was pumped back into your life. And I can feel it through the screen that it's just exuding over you. And just so happy for the work that not only you've done, because sometimes as we heal through things, we're like, okay, I don't have anything else to give to anybody else at this point. But
Right.
you are still pouring into other people. And that is just amazing. And I know that you get a rewarding feeling of doing that as well. I know you talk
Absolutely.
Yes, I know you talk about things that have helped you, journaling, therapy, self care. Can you talk to listeners, especially those who may have experienced abuse, domestic violence, or who are going through a divorce? What does self care look like? Because sometimes we put on those band aids, those quick
Yeah.
fixes, and
Yeah.
those are great, but they're not really long lasting or sustainable. In your opinion, what does self care really look like?
The interesting thing that I have discovered is that self care is different for every single person.
Yes.
It really is. And what it requires of you on a regular basis, you need to ask yourself, because we do this for everybody else, all the
Mhm.
people in our lives. How can I help you? What do you need? Sit down with yourself in a quiet space and ask yourself, in this moment of my life,
Yes.
what is it that I need? Sometimes for me, it was to lie on my closet floor when I was still in the old house before I moved out. It was to lie, go in my closet, I had a big walk in closet, go in there, shut the door. I would get down on the floor and just cry that ugly cry that you
Yeah.
don't want anybody to see. And I would stay there until I got it all out.
Yeah.
get up, clean my face off, come out of the closet, and go back into my life. There were times when I would sing, I would just sing, and dance because I'm musically inclined. So I'm a creative.
Yeah.
So I'm drawn to anything in the arts.
Okay.
So would sing, I would dance, I would pray. Whatever the moment called for, I started because I was wearing so much of my unhappiness in my weight. I just started walking. It was COVID. We were in the house together, all of us.
Yeah.
Kids, dog, ex, everybody was in there.
Yeah.
All of the whatever everybody was dealing with was bouncing off the walls. And so I would walk for hours a day. I'd be out there on the phone, talking on the phone, or sometimes talking to myself, or sometimes journaling in my phone as I'm walking. And I walked because we had a lot of hills around us. Within the first, I would say the first month or two, I lost 20 pounds because
Wow.
I was out there just
Walking
walking
your way. Yeah.
everywhere. And everyone was calling me, checking in on me. And I was just doing what was necessary for me. Working out, I had a Pilates table. So I'd get on that Pilates table and do my workout. I'm a beauty professional by profession for 30 plus years. So I would pamper myself. Couldn't go get a pedicure. So I go get a lawn chair, put it in the tub, and give myself a pedicure with
Nice.
my foot up on on the side of the tub. Whatever I needed
At that time.
at
Yes.
that time, at that moment, I did it because I knew that I needed, for so many years, I had neglected myself. And
Yes.
so it was time for me to pour back into myself and build myself up because ultimately we are responsible for our own peace
Yes.
and happiness and care. Nobody can care for us the way that we care for ourselves.
Yeah.
So once we design a plan for self care, that is the blueprint that we teach other people how to care for us with.
Yes. I love that. I love that. Teaching people how to care for us. And that's such a flip of what we see so many times. It's like relying on other people to know what we need, and they're going to give us what they think we want, which may be far from what we need. So I love how you were able to define self-care as being something that you needed at that moment, because it was going to be different depending on what you needed. And
Right.
so I love that. What are some of the misconceptions that you would like to change about divorce?
One of the biggest misconceptions that even I had prior to filing for divorce and going through this experience is that people automatically assume that because they don't know your struggles or what's going on in your house and your life, that you just suddenly gave up and walked away, that
Mm,
you were weak, that you were not strong, that you were not willing to put in the work.
yeah, and it's not true because there's
It's
all this
not
stuff going
true.
on. Yeah.
Yes, behind the scenes that you're unaware of. So we could stop judging people and making
Hmm.
assumptions that they just weren't strong enough to hold their marriage together because a marriage takes two people working really hard
Hmm.
for it to survive, for it to sustain. And so if it's just one person doing the work, that person will get exhausted quickly. And it's really important that we learn to be supportive of people in their circumstances without knowing all the details, without being nosy, without passing judgment, without choosing a side.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because you don't need to know all the nitty gritty to help someone. And sometimes it's just about listening.
it
Not
is.
even, sometimes we want to give advice and things of that nature, but sometimes it is just that listening component. I want to thank you so much for sharing your story. And I know you're just going to continue to expound on what you're doing. How can people find you? How can they connect with you? How can they donate and offer support to your cause?
Okay. My website, which is the umbrella for everything that I'm doing, is Alimonia Life, ALIMONIALIFE.com. You can find me there. You can find the divorce blog post. I have a private community that you can connect with there. The book and what I'm doing is there. If you have a heart for domestic violence, you can go to find Confronting Domestic Violence online. That you can learn about the things that we do and you can donate there. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. And we'll have all that information in the podcast
Yes.
description so folks
Yes.
can find you and
Yeah.
follow
And
you.
please follow me on social media. I'm on Instagram and Facebook.
Okay, yes. And just your testimony is just encouraging for me, for our listeners. And I'm so just happy to see that you are on the other side and full of joy and all of the wonderful things that you're doing to help others. So I'm going to be keeping an eye out to see what new things you have on the horizon and definitely supporting your cause and supporting you. And thank you so much for taking the time out to be here today on the Lived Experience podcast. And listeners, we
Thank
will
you.
see you back soon.